Hey, so today we'll be watching Ōoku, The Inner Chambers, episode 10. And this will be the final episode of this series, and me and Kenny both can't believe they're finally at the end of the series. And we're curious to know how it concludes. There is one anime that I've been meaning to mention, but I've never actually mentioned before, and the anime is called Kochoki. Because in that series, a similar thing happens with regards to what Lady Chie goes through. Basically, the story is about Nobunaga from when he's a young boy up until he's an adult. And we don't find this out, I believe, till a few episodes later, but his wife turns out to have been a man all this time. Though she was born a male, she was raised as a female in order to be able to marry Nobunaga and kill him. And what I like about that is you don't really see that. Like, we've seen over 2 examples of the opposite happening, where women are pretending to be men. But in this one, it's a man pretending to be a woman. Although he was raised his entire life basically as a female. And the fact that it was actually seen as beneficial for him to pretend to be a girl instead of him just being a man and trying to befriend Nobunaga and get close to him enough to try to kill him. And one last thing before we get into the episode is that so far, it's been a few days since I made the last video. And the only thing that's really changed is the fact that I'm no longer super morbid about Candy anymore. I have hope that she's gonna live longer than what's more or less expected of her due to her health. And also the fact that my mom recently went to her nutritionist, and I don't know how, but somehow the topic of Candy came up and the fact that she has cancer, and the nutritionist told her to stop giving her dog food immediately and to just feed her sardines for now. Since apparently sardines are very good at minimizing cancer with dogs, and so we're only supposed to feed her that. And another thing that we can give her is chicken and beef broth. So if we make chicken soup or meatball soup or anything like that, to give her just the soup. Don't give her any meat or anything, just the soup. And also, it's very important for her to drink a lot of water and get a lot of time in the sun. And today was her first day eating a whole can of sardines, which wasn't intentional, but since they're covered in olive oil, and when I got them, they would basically just disassemble in my hand. I just gave her the entire thing because she loved it. The second I opened the can, she was crazy for it. She ran to it, and I was like, wait, Kenny, no, you can't eat the olive oil. That's the only thing. She can eat the sardines, but she shouldn't just drink a straight up olive oil that's in there. She ate that around 10 in the morning, and it's 6:20 p.m. right now, and her breath is still very stinky. I love her, but she has very stinky sardine breath. And I was also thinking of maybe giving her a dentist stick, but since the nutritionist said that the reason why she shouldn't be eating dog food is because there's a lot of additives and stuff that isn't good for her cancer, I figured that the same thing would apply to greenies, so I didn't give her any. But besides that, once again, she's doing good, she's active, she keeps calling for me whenever I leave her outside, she keeps wanting me to give her attention, and well, basically that's pretty much it. Huh, Candy? Now, having said all of that, on to the final episode. Oh, females. Oh. That sucks to have to think of it like that. Ooh. Not like they had much of a choice though, since they care so much about blood relations. She being the only daughter. Ooh. Whoa, there's been that many men in the Ōoku already? Oh. Oh. They're gonna be the pages or what? Oh, I thought it was gonna be similar to what the current female shogun did. Oh wow, okay, so they are dismissed from the Ōoku. Oh no. What? Oh, that's cruel. And the fact that a lot of them don't even want to do it. I know it might seem like a lot of people's dreams, but it really isn't. Oh, so she did start that. Understandably, she still has the trauma from what happened to her. Yeah, I thought they would be more compassionate, but they're not. 2 lakhs? What? But if they make rice, why can't they just eat it? Oh. See, women have good ideas too. This is the same girl from that family whose dad died, then the grandma died too. Oh, I knew she would. Now without Kasuga, there's no stopping her from doing what she wants. Her rushing to him. Did something happen or she just happy to see him? Oh. After all this time, they're finally able to be together again. Well, I guess I gotta give it to her. She's been with so many men at this point, and she still wants Arikoto, and still loves him, so... Huh? No, don't say that you have to be with other men to have more children. No. Exempt? Why? You can finally be together! Is it just because so she can have more kids? No, thank God she's wrong. Oh. After so long, they can finally be together, and does that mean she's gonna say no? Another request? What? Oh, is that how that works? Arikoto? Will it be him then? Oh, I knew it was gonna be Arikoto. But he's already the sort of lead anyways of the Ōoku. Everybody looks up to him. Is there any surprise? Ooh. Oh, that's why it's so surprising. Oh. Oh wow. That's how far they went to hide it. Boy or girl? Oh. She's like, how many more will I have to give birth to? Oh wow. Shh. How many kids does she have? So can she now finally, after giving birth so many times, can she be with him now? Oh. Oh no. I thought for sure they'd be together in her old age. Then how do they know this? Was it like a second record or something? What? They killed themselves? Seppuku. They even have similar colors to Nobunaga. Oh. Are they allowed to do that? Oh, so he finally chose something for himself this time. Is that why he did it? Now they're on different paths. Oh wow, that was like her last wish? Yeah, they had a rough start. Gradually they got closer. Oh! Chiyo! So he was a father after all in a way. The only after she passed away. Can they even afford to? I knew that was a man! Oh, come off it. They're the ones working. Yeah! Whoa. Usually it's the opposite. If they're not pregnant, you're off the hook. And how is this preventing you from getting that still? But you're still selling yourself. Oh, she couldn't be with him either? Damn. Everybody really is affected by this. Oh wow. Still? You really? Oh. Oh wow. Did she get sick or something? No, it's a risk to have children too. Okay, animation's a little bit weird. More 3D-ish than I thought. Oh, alright, the one who unlocks the door. Is she the one we saw in the beginning, maybe? Oh, Lady Chiyo, or Princess Chiyo. Giving me Encanto vibes. The hell? That's how it ends? Now with the current shogun closing the book and a little bit after that? So the ending felt kind of lackluster to me. So I figured, like I said earlier, that when it got to the point where they finally introduced the next female shogun, that finally the current female shogun would close the book and they would show maybe a little bit more of their lifestyle now, many years in the future, since everything's already been established. Why a male concubine is killed after the first night, why there are so many positions in place, why they dress the way they do, etc. So I assumed after finally knowing the history of all that, we would see a little bit more towards the end in the current times. I mean, sure, we did see an hour and 20 minutes of their lifestyle in the first episode, but the fact that it ended with the current female shogun opening the book, I assumed it would end with her closing it. But I'm also assuming that, well, I mean, at least I hope so, that the manga series does continue from that point. And what I thought was right. Kasuga was the one getting in the way between Arikoto and Lady Chiyo being together. Because after she died, a lot of things changed. She was able to appoint the first ever and only male concubine to be the chamberlain. And she allowed both Gyokuye and another male concubine to become monks. Which before, Kasuga said she couldn't let them do. Or at the very least, she couldn't let Arikoto do that. So now finally having full control over the Ōoku and the rest of the castle, she was finally able to implement rules that she wanted. And give certain freedoms to everybody else, and finally call Arikoto to her bed again. Though sadly at that point, not because she had slept with so many men that he didn't care for her anymore, but because he knew he should not stand in the way of her goal. Since he himself couldn't get her pregnant, he knew she had to continue getting pregnant by other men in order to hopefully end up having a son with one of them, and finally the shogun being back to the way it was supposed to be, a male. Though I at least hoped that after her third pregnancy being a girl, and not just because of that, but the fact that it's already a third pregnancy and she had a kid, she should have just stopped and maybe talk to Arikoto and told him, you know what, no, this is my third kid, it's a girl, I'm not getting any younger, and however many years I have left, I want to spend it with you, and that's it. And then maybe finally convince him to finally just be with her again, and they can play a happy family. Although he did state that he was afraid of his feelings because he only had her that he loved to such a degree, while she had Arikoto, who she loved as man, and her daughter, who she loved because she was her daughter. If anything were to happen to Arikoto, she would still have her daughter and any other children that she had. But if Arikoto lost her while they were together, then he wouldn't be able to bear it. Which is why I think he wanted to distance himself from her so that if and when she died, it would still hurt, but it wouldn't be an overwhelming amount of pain that he would suffer due to the fact that they weren't as close as they were before. Because had they been a couple when she finally passed away, then maybe he would have done what the other two concubines had done once they found out she had passed away, which was commit seppuku. I did find her actions to be pretty cruel though. When at first she dismissed those 100 men, taking into account how young they were and how skilled they were at the sword. Now what I had very first assumed, like I mentioned before, was that she was gonna let them go to go better serve the community and give birth to many children with whomever it is they wanted to have children with, just like the current female shogun did. But what Lady Chiyo ended up doing was what we saw. She ended up forcing them to be part of the pleasure district, whether they wanted to or not, which a majority of them did not want to do, and then even implemented guards to ensure that they wouldn't escape. I understand there's a need for males, but did she really have to force them to do that? Because one, again, they didn't want to do it, so inadvertently she's forcing these men into these sexual encounters that they don't want to be a part of. And two, it just looks like the guards were gonna initiate them in, or in other words, break them in, which is what happens to the new pages in the Ōoku. And I'm saying that based off a look on their faces. When they first saw them, I was like, oh no. Luckily we didn't see anything, but still, it was pretty much implied. And the fact that they kept saying that they don't want to do this, they want to escape, and they were just forced to give themselves to the women that paid for them, still perpetuating this time the matriarchy instead of the patriarchy. And while I know that a lot of guys like to joke about the fact that if they were in their position, they wouldn't mind, and having all these women around, they wouldn't care, they'd be having the time of their lives, and while that might seem very appealing to a lot of guys, and vice versa to a lot of women in the reverse, but like anything, if you're forced to do something, you're not gonna enjoy it and it's gonna be terrible for you. And also, it's not as great as it seems because, like how we saw with the men in the previous episode when Lady Chia went to go visit the district, a lot of them were riddled with diseases, they were very old, they were in terrible shape. They all run the risk of getting diseases from all the women they sleep with and the men who force themselves on them, and vice versa. That in reality, it's a nightmare situation. Another anime that comes to mind that deals with a similar topic is the manga and anime series Kemono Jihen, where one of the characters is Yuki Ono. And basically, from where he and his brother came from, it was a village just of a bunch of Yuki-onna, which are female ice creatures in Japanese mythology. And in that village, it isn't very common to have males. There's always a bunch of females. So if and when a male is ever born, that one is made into the breeding stock for all the women in the village. That male would be raised up until he was of age, which depending, I believe, not even 18 years old, it was much younger than that. Once the women knew they were able to have kids with them, they would then force them to do their job. Even though it was against their will and they were really young, they didn't care. All they cared about was 1, being with the male, and 2, having children. And that would be their fate. They can't escape it. And in that series, it dealt with twin males being born, which had never happened before, which of course meant both of them would be used to father all the future children in the village. So one of the brothers, knowing this would happen, ended up taking the role really early on, so they would just focus on him and not his brother. And that's just the story of one of the other main characters. It's not really the story about the main character. Also the fact that I assumed that Lady Chia would only sleep with the men that Kasuga chose for an extended period of time, meaning that whenever she would name somebody the father of her child, I assumed he actually was the father of that child, but it turns out that no, it just happens to be, well, at least what they believe, it just happens to be whoever she seems to favor at that moment. But I assumed that, like the first man who ended up paralyzing himself because he jumped up in joy, I assumed he actually was the biological father of Princess Chiyo. But it turns out that apparently maybe it wasn't. It's still confusing to me, like, I always assumed that they would know. But I guess maybe she slept with so many different men every other day that it's hard to tell. And also, would it be that hard to maybe pass off one of them as Arikoto's kid? I assumed maybe that was gonna be it in the end. Like I mentioned in another video before. Call in another man that night, sleep with him, then maybe the next day, sleep with Arikoto, and then do it on and off or whatever. And then finally, when she finds out she's pregnant, say that it's Arikoto's kid. There's no way to know. At least I think not. Nobody ever questioned who the father was before. And true, Arikoto wasn't able to get her pregnant before, but who's to say she wouldn't be able to get her pregnant now? Who would question her really anyways? And that way, although it would only be pretend, they could still be a family. And also, it seemed to me that Arikoto never seemed to really age much, because she's about 18 when they first meet, and Arikoto is 31, I believe. And she died when she was 27, so 9 years. So Arikoto is now 40. He doesn't look 40. He looks the same. If not, just maybe a little bit more tired, but that's it. But I assumed at the very least in 9 years and going through all the stressful stuff they've had to go through, that he would look older and maybe even sound a little older, or I guess you could say have a deeper and manlier voice, I guess. But he doesn't. I just find that strange how he never really seemed to age. And that in the end, even though the obstacle of Kasuga was no longer there, they still weren't able to be together in the end. All in the name of doing the roles that they're supposedly meant to do. Also, did that guy's prophecy never come true? Because when he saw who they called Otama, which was Gyokie, that he had the face of somebody who would father a future leader. But yet, it looks like so far that Lady Chia's first daughter, Princess Chiyo, would be the next shogun. And then maybe her sisters after that if she didn't have any kids. Or if she happened to die early without having any kids herself. So does that mean that the prophecy never came true? Because I don't know if they ever said if she actually had a kid with Otama or not. Or if they ever specified that he was the father of one of the kids. And also, did only one man commit seppuku? I thought they mentioned 2 men, but they only showed 1. But again, I guess maybe this is something that the manga clears up that the anime couldn't get to. And also for being a Netflix series and a 10-episode series, which for some reason people find reason enough to not like it somehow, I don't think it was a bad series. I honestly really like this series. It's different than a lot of things that we see today. But yet, a lot of people were bashing the series, whether it be because, I guess, one, it's a Netflix show, that I don't know what that has anything to do with it, and two, the fact that the animation style wasn't that great. I didn't really notice anything inherently wrong with it. Maybe like 2 scenes. This past one seeming very CGI when they bowed, and the other one when they were kissing passionately in the other episode. Those are really the only 2 instances that I saw. Like, okay, the animation's a little weird, but besides that, I didn't really see much wrong with it. To me, it seemed fine. And in the current times, in the first episode, we do see they still do a lot of things like they did in the past, where males sleep with a bunch of women to get them pregnant, and the women are the ones in charge of a lot of things, and there really doesn't seem to be much of a difference now. Though also, like they mentioned, that they want to keep the fact that their male population is low a secret from the rest of the world, which is why they closed off their border to all foreigners. I'm wondering, has the rest of the world also gone through this as well, or is it just them? Could it be they're the only ones suffering from it? Or could it be that everybody else in the world is also suffering from it, and they just don't know because they don't really have a lot of contact with foreigners? And likewise, those foreigners wouldn't be so upfront with the fact that, oh yeah, our male population is dwindling to nothing. Like, they wouldn't be so upfront about it either. It's hard to gauge whether or not it's just a Japan pandemic or if it's a worldwide epidemic. Another thing that I forgot to mention was that now it's made clear as to why both in the past and in the present, all the females with power, whether it be the shogun or the heads of households, why they are given male names is because after so many years, they're still just considered placeholders for their male relatives. That's still a crazy concept that after so many decades, they're still not considered to be a legitimate role. They are still seen as shadows in this sense. And that really, it's only the current female shogun who dared to question it and does not agree with it. She did find it strange how we go by male names. It doesn't make any sense. And now we know why. Because they are just seen as shadows, placeholders for the real leaders who can't be there yet because they can't survive to be adults. Or even if they do survive into adulthood, they could still perish in the next few years. The fact that it's only until this current female shogun came along that dared to question it that it seems that things maybe might change. Probably not drastically or immediately, but there's still gonna be a change because of her. I think the more I find out about how things were back then and how much history and quote-unquote culture she's questioning, it makes me like her so much more. She's daring to do what maybe no one else has done before. And she's probably the first one to want to go and even see the history books in the archives. Although, granted, it isn't to say that the other female shoguns haven't tried to do that before, but of course it's the first one that we're seeing do it. And also, of course, question the way things are. Back then, it was probably still too fresh to try to question and try to change anything when things were barely being established. And now, 80 years from when it all started, there's finally somebody who dares to question the way that things are. She's really gonna cause an uproar if she keeps this up, and especially if the manga series continues with her story. I'm actually very curious to know how things would change with her new way of doing things. To me, it's crazy that after so many years of the females in the family still being in charge due to the lack of males, that just because of that reason alone, they're still not seen as good enough for the jobs that they're doing and for the roles that they have to fulfill. I can maybe understand in the past when all this was still new, like in that scene where all the women were trying to figure out how they're gonna pay for that oil to get rid of the insects from their crops, and the singular old male being the only voice of objection on the basis that 2 of those women saying that they would pay for the oil themselves and told him, you can't do that because you still have older males at home and you have to go ask them first if you're gonna buy this oil or not because they're the head of household. Like, they're the ones who are working in the fields. They're the ones who know what needs to be done. Why would they go ask the older males in the household who, in order to keep them safe from this fatal disease, they have to stay home and essentially just be homebodies until they have to go out and impregnate women? But still, that doesn't make any sense. Because again, if it was the opposite, they would never think to say, oh wait, you have a wife at home who tends to the household, you should go and ask her before you go and pay for some oil. Because of course, again, the males would be the one in charge because they would be the head of households and they would be the one working, but that would also be a point to them as well. They'll be like, well, 1, they're just women and they stay at home all day, and 2, we're the ones doing the hard labor out here, we know what needs to be done. They would be able to justify themselves in that sense because they're the ones working while the women stay at home, not validating their work they do at home, which is maintaining the household and raising the children. Now that it's reversed, and now that the men are forced to stay home, and yet still not even take care of the children, that is still the female's job. I can't believe that. I mean, I can, but also I can't believe that they wouldn't at the very least try to have them take care of the children in the family while they go and work in the fields. They're home all day anyways, might as well put them to use. That's still a valid job. It's still a job. So they should at least try to be doing that and keep the house in order if they have to stay at home all day. And also, the women in charge in their households and also the shogun, they would at the very least have to be very good at their jobs, if not just good at their jobs, to keep their positions and to be respected among society. So how is it that they are deemed, again because there are no eligible males, how is it that they're good enough to do the job right now, but yet they're still not taken seriously because they're still considered placeholders for the true head of households and true shogun, which are the males? Like the fact that they don't want to even validate them at all, and they're still keeping up the tradition of having them be referred to by as male names first, then their female names. That's still insane to me, honestly. But again, maybe this is talked about in the manga series. I don't know. I might actually have to read it after all. They really couldn't just accept the fact, or just the reality really, that these women are capable of doing these jobs just based on their own merits, and not just because there's a lack of males that can do these jobs. And another question that I had was, one, if Kasuga's son was the one who recorded the events of what happened back then and for however long he lived afterwards, how do they know exactly that there once was a lot of males before and that there was a female shogun who disguised herself as a male? When, for the sake of history, they were all given male names in order to be seen as the males still ruling. So how exactly was the actual truth put in there when it was Kasuga's son who wrote it? I assumed he would go by his mother's wishes and never even mention the fact that there were once females in charge. Because now in current times, they don't even know that there used to be a bunch of males before, or that the number of males was even greater than that of females. Because in current times, they believe that it's always been this way, that the females are in charge and there's always been a lesser number of males. They never knew the actual truth, that there used to be an abundance of males. So at what point did they stop reading that history book? Or was it hidden on purpose? Or did they just never question it before? Because at some point, the fact that they're just placeholders for males seemed to have lost its original purpose, because now nobody knows why they go by male names. They just do. So in which shogun's era did they not even bother to look at the book? And in which era did they finally start to forget that there used to be a bunch of males and it was then the belief that there's only a bunch of females around? Since only the current shogun herself decided to go and read the history book. It feels so strange finishing yet another series, because again, I'm not used to finishing series so often. That's usually par for the course with me, really, especially with K-dramas and any other kind of shows. Like, I've seen and I'm watching quite a few K-dramas, and I've seen the first episode of Vincenzo, and I'm up to episode 5 of Crush Landing on You, and it's been about 2 years since I've seen them. And since I started watching those series, I'm still only halfway through episode 1 of Vincenzo, and I'm still on episode 5 of Crush Landing on You. And also, I believe I'm on episode 15 of Rookie Historian. So basically, a lot of series that I start, I don't really finish, because either I lose interest or another show really catches my eye and I start watching that one instead, and I just end up forgetting to continue watching them, and they just stay on my Netflix list or my Viki list for a very long time until finally I decide to watch them. Another series that me and Candy are currently watching, though I'm not recording it, is the recently released Netflix series Griselda with Sofia Vergara, and like, that one's pretty cool. I wish there was more episodes though, because we're on episode 4 right now and there's only 6, so I was like, oh, I kind of wish there was more to the story, but 6 is good enough, I guess. I'm also curious about the manga series, since I've heard that it's covered in plastic when you go buy it, which means it has explicit content that they don't want just anybody to open up and read, because it's just how explicit it usually is. So if I were to ever end up getting the Kindle version or the physical version, I don't know when that would be, and I don't know if I would actually read the entire thing or not. It could just depend on how graphic those graphic scenes are, since I know anime series usually tend to censor a lot of it out. Overall, I enjoyed this series a lot. It's vastly different than what I'm usually used to seeing. It's not any isekai, it's not about anybody who's inherently good or bad. It feels very realistic in that sense. I do find it kind of strange how in this series it seemed very dangerous to be a woman due to the ongoing threat of being sexually assaulted, and yet in the other anime series that I mentioned in the beginning, that one, it seemed better for you to be a woman, although probably more due to the fact that his end goal was to marry Nobunaga, but still, it seemed like the safer option for him to pretend to be a woman all this time instead of being a man, and he didn't have to live with the fear of being sexually assaulted either way, because he was a man or a woman. Thanks for watching these videos, and we'll see you guys in the next series.